We will give everybody just a quick minute or two. We're just in the awkward silence phase until we start our nice town hall. We'd please ask everyone to make sure your speakers or volumes turned up and your microphone is on mute. If you do need any assistance, you can text Kellen at 306-539-3884. Okay, we have a few people still joining us, so we will be starting shortly here. So another half a minute or so. Okay, it looks like our participants are staying pretty steady now. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third competitor town hall session. This evening, we intend to share the latest updates for competitive curlers. With Game 6 of the World Series underway, we're aiming for a 30-minute update session tonight. Any remaining questions at that time will be answered in writing and posted to our website. So just a quick note on the technical operations of our Zoom meeting. When you log in, if you could please type your full name and/or team name in the chat function. This will aid our staff in completing attendance. We ask again to please mute your microphone and use the chat function anytime throughout the meeting to ask a question. We will address all questions at the end. I will now turn it over to Ashley for the further updates.
Thanks, Bruce, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the short notice in which you were able to join us, and we definitely won't keep you very long tonight. I just wanted to kick things off and remind everyone that we do have an open door policy. So if at any point in time you have any questions or concerns, or you're just looking for a little bit more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We would certainly rather talk to you and clear things up than have any incorrect assumptions swirling about or causing any confusion or stress to you. In the previous town halls, I really tried to stress that all the restrictions and guidelines are not fixed, and both the rules and the interpretations are changed on a week-to-week basis, sometimes daily. And over the last couple of weeks and days, we've had some pretty significant challenges, and it's both challenging and frustrating for us as well. But throughout this time and throughout this kind of difficult patch, we're committed to communicating with you, our players, our members, as well as our member clubs. And really, that's the reason why we've called the town hall tonight, again, under such short notice, because obviously we've had some challenges thrown our way in the last few weeks. And really the reason as well is I want to have everybody up to speed on what happened with our qualifying leagues last week, and just share that information as best I can and what the direction looks like going forward. And I would say right off the bat, I'm going to tell you we don't have everything solved. We've been sent back to the drawing board, step back, a number of steps in which we made progress throughout the summer. But we want to first off explain kind of how things unfolded last week. So basically, one of our tour host sites received a phone call from the business response team looking for more information on the event. That club manager reached out to me, and we were able to set up a call later in the afternoon on Thursday with the business response team. On that call, we were informed that we are to follow a 50-person maximum for our competitions. And of course, I attempted to provide any on how the draw protected against any of these, against any large gatherings. For example, we know in an event, not all of the teams are in the building at the same time. we can take a look at the draw and find the longest path. And in that case, between the two leagues that we had scheduled, was actually 7 games was the longest potential path. And that would only have people coming into contact with 28 people. I certainly did my best to explain how we distance from each other. I've also attempted to show them the previous inquiries and written approvals that we had for each of the issues they were bringing up at that time. And of course, spent a significant amount of time drawing them back to the written guidelines and on page 81 of the Reopen Saskatchewan plan, talking about if we can physically distance ourselves, we can operate outside the mini league structure. And really, it didn't matter to them how things were explained or what we said or what we had been told. We, at that point in time, were thrown into a defensive position, and were unable to counter from that position we were in. So at that point, we were threatened with a very significant fine from the government if we were to go ahead with that event. At that time, they also asked us to move ahead with mini leagues, and they informed us that would have to be in place for the rest of the season. They informed us that those groups as well would have to be in place for the rest of the season, and that we had to do our best to reduce or even eliminate travel. So with that information, we gathered together quickly with our tour chairpersons. We discussed any alternative solutions that we could come up with for the weekend. And it was unanimous at that point in time, this is very late on Thursday evening, that we postponed the event, as there really was no alternative measure that would meet the needs for all of our teams, especially given the circumstances and the short notice. From there, all the players were informed that the events were postponed. So Friday morning, I prepared a detailed summary, a detailed report of our position to the business response team. And that included all of our rationales, our current practices, what we're doing to keep people safe. It includes all of the written approvals that we had received over the summer, as summarized as succinctly as I could. So sending that off, I actually quickly received a call back from the business response team, and I'm happy to say this call took a much more positive tone, in which the business response team is willing to work with us and willing to find a way to get us to play our leagues, move towards provincial championships and crowning champions. They do acknowledge that we are a sport that can physically distance, and they are now aware that we're going to great lengths to keep our athletes safe, our clubs informed, and our members informed through town halls like this. At this point in time, they do still, due to the increased number of cases, we are still to maintain 50 athletes, or the equivalent of 12 teams. The preferred method are smaller round robins, and travel does remain a concern. So with this in mind, it does give us a path forward, and I'll be honest with you, it's not a perfect path forward. It's not our plan A, it's not even our plan B or close to something ideal to put a draw. But at this point, it's really no curling or finding a way to work within these guidelines with modified draws and multiple locations. So again, these events, they can't have more than 12 teams or 48 athletes for 4-person events. We're going to have to look at multiple venues if we have more than 12 teams entered into any competition or league. Locations as well to minimize travel would be north and south. And of course, all attempts have to be made so the pools are relatively equal, with also keeping in mind that restriction to limit travel. So just to use this weekend's men's league as an example, with 12 teams entered, they would be split between north and south. With 22 teams entered, they would be split between north and south. The north location, and thank you so much to Corey Kohotch and his team at the Nutana for taking on the north event, and the south men's would be at Moose Jaw. 10 teams will be set to play in the draw at the Nutana and 12 teams in Moose Jaw. Your tour is responsible for assigning all the teams to the nearest location within reason They're also attempting to take into rankings into account, but I'll be honest with you, this is going to be a challenge going forward. They're also attempting to be creative and allow for a few extra playoff games after your scheduled round robin as well. And that is one of the current questions we have into the business response team is how that how playoffs could be possible. So at this time, for the women that are on the call, I'm not aware of a secondary location for the upcoming Moose Jaw event scheduled for next weekend, but I know the ladies are working hard to find a secondary location for the additional teams over 12. And communication will be coming as soon as possible on that second location and the draw. So as I've described this situation, this will be the path forward for the foreseeable future. As I said, this path is the alternative to no curling. We hope that this at least allows and maintains the ability for us to play as we work towards alternatives for the rest of the season. Of course, we're continuing to go back and forth with the government for a number of changes to make sure that we can do this safely and we can do it in a rational way that allows us to run our businesses. I have one other update here for Masters athletes. The national championship that is scheduled for 2021, that had previously been scheduled for this upcoming April. It has now been moved to the fall of 2021. The new dates are November 17th to November 21st of 2021. That will be in Winnipeg. For those of you wanting a little more information about just the the provincial championship, as well as the playdown process, as you can imagine, we are reviewing our plans following this updated guidance from the business response team. At this point, there are no changes to dates or locations. Our staff and board are dusting off all of our backup plans. We're working hard to make sure that we have all of our options covered and we fit within the new guidance. So it is certainly possible that we have to adjust our plans. And in this case, we'll obviously communicate with you on any changes if they become necessary. So we'll share more information as soon as we can. At this time, though, I would ask your help in identifying all of the numbers and the interest for our competitions. So shortly, we'll be asking you to share your intentions on which events you plan to play in with respect to our playdowns, in which categories you intend to play in. And that will help us assess the numbers, our interest for each event. It'll help us assess the locations that you're coming from, and then from there, make appropriate decisions for each competition. So keep an eye out. A survey will be coming from the office shortly. If you could please give us your intention and your interest in curling and playdowns this year, it would really help us in our discussions on finding out a way forward. I also want to note that our sport has the attention of the government, good or bad. We have the attention of the government, and I just want to ask if you can help us out by treading lightly when it comes to any media, any social media platforms that you're using. Or this would even include when you're live streaming a game, just to demonstrate distancing as best that you can. And we appreciate your help with that, because we're aware now certainly that the government is watching our sport closely. Again, a reminder, we've talked about this a little bit before, but our guidance from the Ministry of Health has suggested that we revise the names for bonspiels and events. And this is challenging even for me, but the preferred term or terminology for tour events is a qualifying league. So you'll be playing in a provincial qualifying league. And for the time being, what you can do to help is just follow all the guidance from the health authorities as best you can. Limit your contact with others. Try your best to follow any protocols laid out by the clubs and their return to play plans. Consider downloading the COVID Alert app. Take your time and clean the rocks before and after your practices and your games. Clean the scoreboards. Taking care of your clubs throughout this, and in particular as cases rise right now, Taking care of your club really will make a difference. The one other thing I really want to highlight and I want to recognize is the incredible patience of our athletes and our members and our member clubs. The vast majority of you have been amazing, have been incredibly patient, have been incredibly understanding of our position and challenges this particular year. I know as well the vast majority are doing your due diligence, you're cleaning your rocks, whether you like it or not, or whatever the rule is. And you guys are working to be a part of the solution. And I can't thank you enough for that. So thank you on behalf of Curl Sask and our entire organization and all of the curling clubs for doing what you can to prevent the spread. And I also want to say, we will figure this out. We won't stop until we do figure it out. We will find a way to curl and it will be okay. So moving forward, we have identified all of our risks, all of our issues right now that we have on our plate. We're prioritizing them, separating them into manageable workloads, and we'll continue to press the business response team, the Ministry of Health, for answers and additional direction so we can find a way forward. And of course, as we are faced likely with more decisions down the road, we'll continue to make the decisions that are in the best interest of the sport. So as well, I would note we'll continue to communicate with you. I understand that the town hall format is being really well received. The feedback has been positive. So we will continue to communicate with you as much as possible. So thank you very much for listening and tuning in tonight for our latest update.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. We have some time, so we will address any questions. If anyone has anything they want to add into the chat function, we are monitoring it, and we're willing to answer any questions that we have answers for. I don't see any questions, Ashley. Anybody else? Last call. Do you? Okay, here we got a question here. Okay, so Ashley, we have a question here. Will the men's events this weekend have PTRS points?
Yeah, good question. Rhonda, thanks very much for that. At this point in time, PTRS is still being tabulated within the events in our province. So yes, as planned, we would continue to have the PTRS points online. It'll basically be more of a pay-per-win system.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. We do have another question here. It's, can teams play north, then playing in south the next event?
Yeah, another good question. The initial situation was no, but we've actually managed to gain some ground in this particular area. So the guidance right now is that there would be a 2-week washout period between all of our events, and on the men's and women's tour, that's actually how things are naturally scheduled. So that works well. So we will be able to have turnaround of teams or change of teams between north and south, which will probably help us balance, caliber of teams, rankings, seedings, etc. going forward. So it is quite possible that a team maybe residing in Saskatoon plays in a south event from time to time, but we also have to try and manage hotspots in the province as well as any travel as well. So long as we have a bit of a 2-week cooling off period, we'll be able to manage different draws and different teams as well.
Okay, thanks, Ashley. We do have another question here. Any idea when we might hear if Scotties and the Briar is a go?
Yeah, good question as well. Thanks. I would love to know, honestly. It was on my radar to give Curling Canada a call today and just check in on where things are at. I don't have a perfect answer for you on it. I know they're working hard and have all kinds of planning and waiting for any types of approvals to move forward. So I don't have anything more on that. Hopefully soon things are in place. But right now we're certainly planning for the remaining championships to happen. And that would be the Briar, Scotties, and mixed doubles. Those are the ones that are still on the table, haven't been postponed or canceled. So we will plan for those to happen for as long as it's possible or until we hear otherwise.
Okay, we have another question here. If one event only has 7 teams, can we do full round robin within that group or maximum 6?
Yeah, good question, Nancy. I think that is an option because we're still under the 50 person. I am running a few different draw formats past our contact as well, just to gain some clarity. At this point, the approval has been for a 12-team event in 2 pools of 6. But we're definitely trying to fit different formats in and see what type of options that we have across all of our events. So that's going to have to be a more to come.
Okay, the next question we have, are we allowing out of province residents to play in our events?
Yeah, really good question. So our last update, we did have quite a bit of change in pace from the government. But long story short, we do have the approval for out of province individuals to come in. They have a strict protocol to follow just because of the travel and because of the opportunity that potentially they may spread COVID in either direction. So they have an extra set of regulations that they have to follow, including the negative COVID test, including the COVID alert app. So that's what's in place at this point to allow the out of province individuals in, because it is really only a small group of individuals we have. But yeah, we will we'll keep working with folks to make sure that the teams that were set up can continue to play here.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, are the senior qualifiers still a go at this time?
At this time, yes. We have to be very mindful, obviously, of the 12 teams and finding alternative arrangements if we exceed 12 teams in any event. So that's really why we're sending out the intention to play, is to see what we have laid out and how many teams we have and find a way to work within, obviously, those numbers as appropriate. But at this point in time, all events are as scheduled, are planning to go forward. We're just trying to find a way to make those go forward.
Okay, next question is, what are the men, this would have to do with the event happening this weekend. So what are the men doing with the 10 teams? So I guess she's asking, what's the draw format there?
Yeah, I haven't looked too much at the draw, so Ryan probably could answer things better, but I think he's busy this evening. So it'll be 2 pools of 5 at that event. And then with the 12 teams, it's 2 pools of 6. So instead of having 11 and 11 at each location, and obviously a very difficult draw, they went with the 10 and 12 just to balance that out.
I
Okay.
can confirm that, Ashley. That's what we did, was 2 pools of 5.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bob. Appreciate that.
Okay, so the next question is, so just to clarify, PTRS points are available without teams playing against the entire field.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess it's really just trying to find a way to accommodate as many teams as we can and needing to have 2 locations. Otherwise, it's still a competition or event that's counting towards provincials. So yeah, we will try and we really have to take advantage, honestly, of the events that we can get in. I don't have a magic ball as to how many we'll be able to run. The Women's Highland event is a perfect example, going along with no problems and then running into a roadblock and having to cancel. Or even these past 2 events, we really had no idea that these things would get thrown at us. So we're trying to get as many games as we can, as large of a sample size as we can, to qualify teams forward for provincials. So I mean, not ideal when you're not playing the entire field or have no opportunity to play the entire field. But at this point, it's really the best draw that we are allowed to put forward.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, will there be a playoff, or is a crossover of the pools not allowed at this time?
Yeah, really good question. Ideally, we would like to see some type of crossover, some type of playoff or extension of the pool, but we don't know. To be honest, that's one of the questions we have in with the business response team, and we're trying to have clarified for this weekend. So ideally, that's something that we're trying to push for and advocate for. But again, they're really conscious of how many people you're coming in contact with, and that it may be a no from the government, it may be a yes. So unfortunately, I don't know yet.
Okay, and I think the next question is just a repeat of the other one. So unless I don't, yeah, it looks like it's the same question, what you just answered. So do we have any more questions? We're getting real close here, but we would have time for one or two more if anybody has any more questions. Okay, we do have another one. It says, if pools is the answer to allow us to play, can the pools be changed week to week based on who you have already played?
Yeah, really good question. So the answer is yes, so long as we have a 2-week cooling off period between events, or the 50 people can change as long as there's a 14-day, 2-week cooling off period. So we would be able to change based not week by week, but with that 2-week cooling off period, we can move things around. But we are held to reducing travel as best we can. So there aren't firm guidelines around that reducing travel, but we're trying to be as respectful as we can, and of course trying to avoid the spread if
Hey, Ashley,
Hey, Brock.
could I just follow up with that question? So that question just based on if we continue to have these similar teams join, like let's say in the South, maybe the next event we have, you might see these same 12 teams rather than the pool be made up based on seeding or whatever from past years. Could it just be based, like I said, based on, okay, these guys have already played, so we got to make sure that they're kind of playing everyone, as opposed to, you might end up in the same pool with someone more often than not. That was kind of the question. I'm just not as good on the keyboard to get it in before Bruce cut me off.
Fair enough. I think he was trying to cut you off about 20 questions ago when it was just silence and people were typing. But no, okay.
Yeah.
I certainly understand that a little bit more, for sure. So we can definitely take into account, or try to take into account, the past teams that you've played as well. So I'm assuming you're advocating more for changing up the teams and not being stuck with the same 12.
Yeah, I just see, like, I get obviously the first time it's going to be based off seeding because that's probably the only way you could do it for these first groups of pools. But if pools continues to be the answer, maybe like we look, okay, these guys have played last week, and regardless of seeding, we need to mix it up so that everyone's playing everyone to kind of get a fair evaluation of the teams in our province at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's reasonable, and we'll certainly try and take all those factors into consideration. I can't promise it'll be perfect. You'll get to play everyone, or you won't end up playing the same team multiple times. But I mean, it's games, and we'll move forward happy that we're at least permitted to play.
100%.
I do all the draws, Brock, for our men's tour, if you knew that or not. And there's no reason why we can't at least keep similar teams and spread them apart so that we're not playing the same 6 or 7 teams through most of the next 3 months.
For sure.
Keep the pools relatively balanced, but we can still spread teams out, not necessarily exactly on our seating.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a circus no matter how we do it.
That's a good word for it, Brock. I might just have to use that in our next script, circus.
It's the fairest.
Okay, I better pause at least 10 seconds. Otherwise, Brock's going to say I cut him off again.
I'm done.
Okay, sounds good. So probably last question, as it's getting close to 6:30 here. So if no playoffs, can we run provincials?
Great question. Again, I really don't have a firm answer for you on it one way or the other. Of course, we're doing absolutely everything we can to run a provincials, have a champion declared, have meaningful competition that would lead forward in all of our categories. So I think it's probably a better if I get back to you and I get back to everyone on how we do that and what the plans are, because I can't say for certain yes or no at this point in time. Hopefully there's a way we can manage our numbers and manage things safely and prove through a number of these events that we can run curling safely. And come time for provincials, we have a nice solid track record that we can build on, and then push for leniency if we need it, and just make sure we have the rubber stamp of approval on everything, and we can have great events and declare champions, because a lot of us, that's what we get up for in the morning, is running those provincials and maybe winning one day, right? So we know that that's important, and we'll certainly be doing our best to make sure we can run provincials and have legitimate champions.
Okay, and just one really quick here, Ashley, I guess, have they mentioned the rationale why we can't have playoffs for events?
I couldn't say that I have a solid answer from them as to why. I think it's a little bit of an issue because you're trying to make a rule for all of the sports, and you're trying to make such general guidelines that when I look at them from an individual sport perspective, they don't always make a ton of sense perfectly. So I don't think I have a perfect answer for you. I think it's about contact and multiple rounds and prolonged exposure amongst a group that would be their concern. But I can't say I have a perfect answer that makes sense to me on this one.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Wanted to thank everybody again for showing up for this town hall. We will have a recording available, so it will be put online on our CurlSAS website, so you can replay or share it with people who haven't heard this. And we'll continue to monitor and to communicate as much as we can. Thank you all, and have a good evening.